Good evening, all, and welcome to this special KK Productions crossover episode. That's right, we are streaming live to SCA Coaches Corner and Kalbardrs Korner for this very special edition of Coaches Corner, covering a subject that we all love and a lot of folks don't love. I'm Kal-bardr Gellir, Baron of the Courts of Artemisia, Defender of the West, and Commander of the Dark Horse Foreign Legion. And tonight I have brought together a plethora of knowledge, some stick thuggery, and all-around silliness. So let's dive right into introductions. Starting from the top of the precedence, we have the Crown of Aidenvelt joining us. Take it away, Your Majesty.
Well, what's up, my friends? So I am Czypser. I don't remember all of what I'm supposed to say, so I'm just going to say stuff. I come from the Outlands originally. Lived there for quite a while, and then I moved to Aidenvelt probably 12 years ago. And they have beat me up with their son and their sticks ever since. I love it down there. But I fight sword and spear with a shield. I've just recently put a buckler on it as at the behest of the mighty Duke Sven from Antigone. I think he beat that into me. Madu's 52 inches, probably about the same size as Béla's, and sword's about 36 inches with a thrusting tip. So, did I cover everything, Cal?
That's pretty close. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate you. All right, moving down. Next up, a veteran of KK Productions, the Boned Duke of the Outlands. Good evening, Your Grace.
Good to see you again. For those of you who don't know, I am Duke Béla Kós of the Chippendales from the Outlands. I've been in the SCA for 32 years, and I fight with every weapons form there is, but I'm probably most well known for fighting sword and madu. I've been fighting sword and madu for about 28 years now. Won at least 5 of my crowns with that style. 5. Willing to teach anybody that wants to learn how to fight the style, how to fight against it, so that people can learn that it's not this magic winning formula that just gets you wins. You also have to be good with it.
That's the key right there. That's what this episode's about, is Béla telling us that it's not in fact magical. All right. Speaking of folks who learn things from Béla, from the stellar kingdom of Antigone, a duchess who's been training with the Bone Duke, who knows a few of his dirty tricks. Good evening, Your Grace.
Hi. So my name is Duchess Antigone of York, and I am from, as you said, the stellar kingdom of Antigone, which consists of most of Texas and Oklahoma. I am from the very center of our kingdom in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Which is very rich in a lot of royal family and a lot of very strong, multiple styled people, mostly 2-sword, great sword, and then we do have a plethora of Madu fighters out of our area as well here. And so obviously I fight with Madu, which it's been changing kind of in height and length. I've been playing with length. Because of my height and range is a little bit different than some of the other people here. We've been trying to play with figuring out exactly which one of those works, but it's not a short one. It's a longer one with the shield on, much like how His Highness now has, or Majesty, sorry, has on his. And then, of course, a short sword, which I typically keep it around 35, 34 inches. And then background-wise, I've been heavy fighting for a little over a year. At this point, I had a medical condition, so I fought rapier for about 8 years before that. And then for 10 years before that, I actually was very much a stick jock in the Amp Guard foam fighting organization, where I primarily fought Madu and short sword, same thing, but without a shield, and then sword and shield. So a lot of good stuff. I love fighting.
I muted myself. For those who can't see, Antigone actually is very short. I think my Madu is actually taller than she is. So it gives you some reference here. We all look the same height on camera, but she is teeny tiny, but fierce. All right. Moving over to the East Coast, one of the three former fat guys and a hero of the West. What's going on, Uncle Fergus?
Oh, that name. Hi, I'm Viscount Sir Fearghus. I was born and raised in the West Kingdom, but recently, the last 2 years, I moved out to Atlantia and am loving every second of it. I love my new kingdom. I miss my old home more than anyone knows, but I love my new area. As far as my fighting style, I went to the stupid stick, as I lovingly call it, a few years ago due to the fact that I had an injured shoulder and decided that after my shoulder was completely healed that I was having too much fun and said, screw everybody else, I'm going to continue to have fun. Been in the SCA since like 2000 and here in my old kingdom and my new kingdom, I've learned a lot, and I love teaching and instructing and showing people the idiocy of the joy that I have with this stupid thing sitting on the table next to me.
There you go. Thank you for that.
And I don't use the shield. No.
and I think we're going to get into some specific styles because there is a plethora of styles on our panel currently too. So it's interesting to see some of the differences there. So be interested to talk about that. But last but not least, heading back to the West Coast from the Kingdom of Kaid, a baby knight, but all around fantastic teacher. Good evening, Sir Valentine.
Good evening. Yeah, like you said, my name is Valentine Martin. I've been in the SCA for just about 5 years. After quarantine, that's really when I picked up one of my knights, put a madu in my hand, and I enjoyed it. And they immediately went, "Nope, you can't do that." And so I went to not in Kaid at least. And so I went to the axe, loved it even more, and became very successful at it to the point where, as I was coming up, they're like, "You're not going to get knighted that way," and that whole rigmarole. But to a point where they actually started doing, sword and shield only tournaments, and it was felt the hate a little bit. And after that, it was now they've actually have rules in Kaid, and it's been a beautiful thing to see. I think at our last crown, we had 4 people fighting some sort of sword and axe. Mine is sword and axe, very similar, 36 inches. The axe is about 48 or so. I just fight with my hand very close to the top. And then, we'll talk about rules and whatnot. So, yes, hi.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Valentine. And I do want to give a special shout out to Centurion Margery, or Madujri, as she said her name in the chat. From Onstiora, was supposed to be joining us this evening, but ended up getting called into work. So shout out to her. Hopefully she'll join us on the next one. But for those of you out there watching, if you have questions, comments, or anything you'd like to add to our discussion during the show, please feel free to add them in the chat or comments, depending on which platform you're watching on, and we will address them over there. Include your name and titles so we can talk to you and give you special shout outs. All right. So as we've all sort of referenced, tonight's subject is the madu. Now, when I say madu, 2 of us fight actual madu. Some of us fight some variation of axe. Some of us fight variation of spears. But when I say madu, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the thing in your offhand that has 2 pokey sticks or 2 pokey ends and some sort of offensive weapon in your other hand. That's what we're talking about here. It looks different, but all of it's sort of a same idea. So I'm going to toss it to Béla first to give us the history of madu as the oldest person here. So Béla, what can you tell us about the style in the SCA and sort of where it came from?
You guys can blame the Outlands for madu. The known world can, because Surasad Uden was the first one to fight with a madu, and I think it was like 1979 or 80 is when he first started fighting with a madu and got it passed society-wide as a weapons form. And it became a fairly popular weapon style in my kingdom. I know I can think of probably 4 or 5 different dukes who have won crown with that style. So when I first came to the SCA in 1990, there were a lot of guys in my kingdom that fought it. So it wasn't this big bugaboo. It wasn't this, ooh, that's a scary thing, because I just saw it everywhere I went. And so I think that's part of, it's a different thing, but I think that's part of why some kingdoms don't like it so much, is because they never see it. And so they don't know what to do about it. But out here it's been very prevalent and very popular since Assad first brought it in.
Thank you for that. And so, what was that year that started?
It was either 79 or 80. I know it was before we became a kingdom, and we became a kingdom in 1986.
There you go. So,
yeah,
quite a few years ago then. All right, cool.
Mhm.
So, rules wise, is there what rules do we have that govern Madu? And again, Madu style, right? So we cover either axe, spear, or Madu. What are our rules set? And I know there's at least some society level ones, and we have a couple of kingdom level specifics. So, who wants to pick that up? I see Fearghus unmuted. Fearghus likes talking. What you got, Fearghus?
I know in the West, I was never aware of any major rules. It was, for the longest time, it was frowned upon. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people had a lot of issue with the style because what they saw was kind of gaming the system. With the longer reach at the bottom, people kind of legging somebody and standing outside and poking at them until they succumb to however many thrusts they needed to succumb to. And so people got a bad taste in it in that way. And my knight, Duke Rolf, among many other things a long time ago on a different subject, really taught me my mentality on it. It was very simple, right? It's not your job to fight to my level. It's my job to figure out how to beat you, right? So that's what it came down to. Rules. I was made aware of a rule here in Atlantia not too long ago because I thought my stupid stick only had a thrust on one end, and it was the bottom end because I took the one off the top, which was the shaft, because of rules and people not liking the idea of dying to a piece of wood. Out here, I've been told that.
Can you actually show what you're fighting with as far as, because you fight broken spear is your idea?
So the beautiful thing about mine is mine fits in one camera angle. Right, like
there you go.
It is 36 inches from there to there, same length as my sword. Right, this is a broken. It's supposed to be. We'll make it really simple.
Here's the real version sitting next to him.
Is this? I just knocked the Hulk down. Right, so this is what I fight with, or a facsimile thereof. Right, there's a long story, right, about breaking shields, things like that in the Norse culture. But for me, it was very much like if my shield got broken on the warfield, was there something else I could pick up and use? And yeah, there's going to be a ton of broken spears sitting around, right? So I can damn sure take a piece of steel and jam it through you one-handed, just like I could with a sword. But back to the rule thing real quick. I found out here in Atlantia that apparently in Atlantia, in the Atlantean rules, you cannot have a thrusting tip within 4 inches of your hand. Mm-hmm. So for the longest time, this part up here did not have a thrusting point on it because out here, because I didn't think it was outside of the rules. They said that because my hand rests here, there's more than 4 inches from my hand to here, so I could have a thrusting tip back on here. So basically, they let me start left hooking people in the jaw, is how that works.
Which is just great, and we appreciate them for that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure you want that to happen, but Coach's Corner again the rest week. Yes, I know. God dang it! Let me call my wife.
So for anyone who never watched the show before, Fearghus did say in the West, or we can take a shot for that one. So I know other than that, so I was sort of looking through the society level rules. I could not find anything that said about thrusting tips at both ends, or that you could or couldn't. It's all sort of single weapon, like requirements for a sword is the same. Am I wrong there? Anybody want to jump on that?
Well, I'm going to jump on something real quick. Something we talked about beforehand, before the show, is also the idea of the shield not being controlled by a hand. That's something else I think somebody else that fights that style should go over, is the shield controlling both a weapon and a shield.
Your Majesty?
Oh yeah, it's that's my face. So yeah, and we talked a little bit about this before, but not everybody was here for that. As of right now, I don't know that there are any rules in the Marshal's Handbook that govern length or anything like that on a Madu. There used to be rules. I know, like being Béla Squire, like we got to hear about the Madu rules all the time. And it's a relatively newer style for me within the last 6 years or so. But I just remember kind of watching the rules go through as people hated how the rules were or how it was worded. I think at one point it was, Madus are not a period style. Like I think it even it was worded that way in the handbook. And then it said you can have a weapon if it's 48 inches or longer, you can have a thrusting tip on both sides. My guess is when they pulled the, Madu statement out, is that they pulled the thrusting tip rule out. And so as far as I can tell, I don't know that there are any SCA specific rules in the book against Madus. I don't know that there are any for Madus, but none against them either.
Yeah,
So-
anymore.
I found so no weapon may have a cutting or smashing surface at both ends. So you can't have a cutting end on both ends, or like it can be like a staff or whatever. And then when thrusting tips are used, here's the requirements for them. And then the total mass can't exceed 5 pounds. So if you have a big heavy shield on it, that would add weight. So I know Valentine. I know Kaid recently came out with some rules specific to Madus or Madu style which matters for anybody going to Great Western War. Can you address those?
Yeah. So originally, Kaid was their sticking point was no weapon attached to the no shield. Yeah, no weapon attached to the shield. So that was the non-starter for that point. So you were able to use a stick with a basket hilt, kinda, if you were using a which I had a different axe at one point. I'll show you that, but maybe. And my hand sits underneath, so yes, you can't use that front part up there as a punch, but you can have the thrusting. So what they came out with, and I have it pulled up in here somewhere, was that they limited the size of the 30 to 60 inches, so you can't have something fairly small, and no buckler greater than 12 inches on the Madu, and then the thrusting point cannot be closer than 8 inches to your hand. So, and that was their kind of compromise for it, and I'm all for it, because I don't even know if we were the last kingdom that was had it out and out banned. So.
Interesting. Okay, so Kaid has no closer than 8 inches for thrusting, and then Atlantia has 4 inches for thrusting. So I think that's at least on the same idea there. So you mentioned something just now about the punching with the axe face idea, and I know that I watched Fearghus rage down there. I know that's come up a lot with Madu fighters and things of that nature. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Punch. Well, I think I don't know if that's SCA rule, but it's the punch buckler thing.
Right.
That was the thing that, you can't have anything in line with your hand. So if you have, you've seen some of those, the steel fighters use it that way. So if my hand is behind the axe blade, I can't use this part of the axe. The idea was if it is 8 inches below, so if I leave myself 8 inches here, and I have seen people, put a mark or a stopper there so they can use that, then you're able to do that. And I think that's, to be fair, that's probably a fairly safe thing to not be able to just straight punching people in the face with a blade. So,
and back when they were first allowed, so there's a version of this weapon style called an adaga, which the Moors used and they brought to Spain, and it varied in length, but the biggest one was about a 6-foot spear, double-ended spear with a buckler, shield, and a dagger coming out right by the hand for the shield, which is essentially a punch dagger, which is not allowed. But they used to be, and we used to have them, and guys were getting knocked out. So it became a safety issue. So that part went away. And I have no problems with that. If there's a weapon that's deemed unsafe, we need to get it off the field. But other than the punch dagger aspect, there's nothing unsafe about a Madu style.
agreed.
Okay, I'll ask this question to you, Béla, on the unsafe thing. I'm sorry, Antigone, did you have something to add?
No, I'll do it after you.
Okay, sure. So when I first started my fighting Madu, one of the safety concerns I was given was people having their knees blown out by the bottom thrust. And I've heard that a couple times. And I love the face I just got. What the fuck is that? So has anybody else heard that of that being an issue?
As a guy who's had 2 complete ACL reconstructions, none of which were from fighting, no, I've never heard that, and that's ridiculous.
Okay. Fergus, go ahead.
As somebody, once again, like his Grace, an ACL reconstruction, not from fighting, and from somebody that loves to stab people in the upper thigh like it's going out of style. I have never heard of that. I've never seen that happen at all. Right? Like it's that's new. That's a new one. I'm going to chalk that up.
Maybe it's just me. I'll take it. All right. Antigone, you had something to talk about. What you got?
Yeah, well, so something that's interesting in our kingdom is we don't have anything other than the SCA rules. And I think that's because we really don't have Madu or we did not have very many Madu fighters. We had one individual who was a count that fought with one and won crown with it in the past, I think 6 years. But he used it kind of as a middle Madu, which is the buckler and then just a little stabby and a stabby at the end. It wasn't a full length Madu or a full length broken spear. So it was pretty unheard of here until probably the last, I think 3 years when we came back from COVID. And so it's kind of, we have everything from the shield on a spear to the shield with spikies on it to we now have one of our dukes made a giant shield with like a sword that's in it. He doesn't stab with it, but he blocks with it. It's and then we have the broken spears with the cup hilt at the top with both spikes. So we have a lot of experimentation here on Stewart now that people have kind of discovered the style. So it's kind of interesting to watch and see what people are coming up with. And I expect our kingdom to roll out some rules governing it probably in the next year or two, just because of the experimentation that's kind of going around. But we also don't really have a whole lot of hate for the weapon style here. A lot of people don't understand it, but because it is a little newer and we don't have people that are just running around creaming people and just like knocking them out or whatever, going crazy. We also haven't had a whole lot of hate for this style. So it's kind of interesting to see the differences between cross kingdoms.
Keep muting myself. I think it really is interesting, and that's why I wanted to bring together a sort of a wide group of folks. We get some different opinions of this. So being from Meridiers, I see one thing. Aidenvelt has opinions. Outlands has opinions. The folks from Atlantis, we don't talk to them much, but they have opinions too. I do want to. So we had a couple of things out in the comments here. I want to address a couple of safety concerns and then a question for Fearghus there. So talking about the safety thing. Amber says, I've seen more folks hurt by Warhammers than Madus. Never seen a person hurt by Madu, which I can agree with. And then Glaives and Greatswords hurt folks far more than Madus, which I agree with that. Duke, I'm sorry, His Majesty at the time, North Shield, Duke Tom hit me with his Greatsword at Gulf Wars. I'm still feeling it, I think. So, yeah, ow. Fergus, you had a question about your spear. You have 4 crosses on the shaft.
Yes. Thank you very much. When we talk about, we had people here that fight with the traditional Madu with a buckler on the shaft. This is my hand, right here. I fight with a gauntlet. So what these 2 are supposedly to be quillions that would be on a spear that would have been broken off. I added these 2 to protect my knuckles from getting driven into. So these right here are a modification for my safety along with these, right? That's what they're there for. It's because I fight with a gauntlet because for me, if someone knocks my broken spear out of my hand, I continue to fight. Yeah. There's no hold called. I tell the marshals do not call hold because I still have a gauntlet on. I am still fully fightable, right? I'm fully safe. So that's the reason why these are there. It's just a safety thing. I also use them to hook shields, things like this. I'm very active with this style. So Kevin, to answer your question, these are merely for my knuckles so that I don't look like I'm a gorilla and walk on them all the time.
Speaking of the whole thing, we actually had that happen. So Glen Albin's last crown list was no shields list, which the Madu fighter was like, I want to go fight in that. Sounds fun. And there was a lot of people fighting Madu or Axe variations. His lordship, Shay, actually fought with a Madu for the first time and came in third in the list. So I thought that was pretty cool to see that, seeing some new fighters enjoying the style and seeing the effectiveness of it. So it was nice to see. All right. Oh, and also I see his Grace Tom is watching and apologized to me for smacking me with his greatsword. It hurt. He's a good fighter. All right. So stories, things we want to talk about. So why do we do this? So I'd like to go through the panel and talk about why each of us chose this, as Fearghus calls, stupid stick style. Start. Actually, I'm going to start at the bottom of the list. Valentine, why did you pick it up? Why did you shift to Madu, or in your case, Axe?
So I think a lot of it is you fall in, and I tell this to a lot of people, is the early success. You'll see a lot of early success with fighting the style. So that'll kind of get you the addiction. For me, it was also, they told me I couldn't do it. So by gummit, I'm going to try it. So that was a big portion of it. And I like to see different things. And we were a very, very, well, we still are very sword and shield. Like there's very few great weapon fighters. There's very few, like, I don't know of any, there's very few knights that fight that way. So that's actually one of my mentors, Duke Tom, is that's one of the next things I want to bring, is I want to see that variety of things. So that was probably the main reason that I fought with it, the early success. And I think it was Béla that said that you fight with everything. So I'm very much in the same boat. Every file and every style that I've learned has taught me something else. Like I went back and picked up a shield and was like, oh, edge blocking is easy now, because that's all we do with Madus. So it teaches you footwork and it teaches you those angles. So that was my main points.
All right, Fearghus, you talked a little about your shoulder injury is the starting point. Why did you go to Madu versus just single sword or double sword or something?
Simply because since I started fighting in the SCA, I was sword and shield guy the entire time. I always loved trying to fight with axes and getting blown out, everything else like that. So I was sword and shield for the longest time, and then I had my shoulder injury that made it very difficult. And I continued to try to fight with sword and shield for months and would just get my shoulder burned the entire time. At some point, I picked up a stick, and I stole the idea from Ragnar, Count Ragnar in Sinagua in the west. He had what he called Mr. Oar. So his head there was no offensive capability. It was supposedly a broken oar from the ship he got off of. And it was amazing. And he said that he got the idea, and I also partially got my idea from Duke Radnor. When Radnor blew his shoulder out, he went to a broken lance, also no offensive capability, but it was like the bottom part of a lance that it had broken off. And I'm like, well, it can't hurt anymore, right? Picked it up and fell in love with the style. I just really did. I always talked about having footwork, but at that point I was still 400 pounds and had none. I was just a giant obelisk with a sword, right? This forced me to move and made me a better fighter. Right, because after losing all the weight and bones getting near the surface, I really realized that this sport is stupid, right? Because it hurts, right? And when you get hit in a collarbone, right, you don't want that to ever happen again. So it improved my footwork, it improved everything, and it was also something that was non-traditional, right? It was fun. My shoulder is completely fine now. I can fight with a shield all day. I just won't, right? There's no reason to. It's this sport we do is about joy and about fun. And if you're not enjoying it and having fun doing it, stop, right? Do whatever you want to do and don't let somebody else piss in your Cheerios if you want to fight with a Madu or whatever. Go enjoy it. And at the end of the day, drink your beer and talk about it.
There you go. Thank you for that. Antigone, back from your Amtgard days, what made you pick up the style?
Yeah, so I have two stories, one in Amtgard and one when I started fighting in the SCA. So in Amtgard, I was primarily a sword and shield fighter, but over there the rule set is obviously different. We don't wear armor. You cannot hit above the neck to the head. So as a sword and shield fighter, your shield was here. You had perfect vision of everything going on. But as a 5 foot 3.5 fighter, shield was it was just problematic for me, because most of the people in that game that I fought were 5'10" taller. Almost, I think there were maybe less than 10 female fighters in the whole organization as well. So I just didn't have a whole lot of success with that, and due to my height, and I also have a negative ape index, whatever, the arm to height, so that doesn't help me any. And so someone that I was kind of training with was like, hey, you should try a down spear and a short sword because of your height. And I was like, well, fuck it, it can't get any. Oh, sorry, I said a bad word. It can't get any worse. I didn't know if that was okay. So it can't get any worse for me, right? Thank you. Warning, Antigone will use offensive language. So I was like, sure, why not? And the learning curve was a little steep for me, because I wasn't used to being able to fight at that range. I was used to having to be like almost face to face with some of these people in order to fight because of my height. And so after I got used to that, and I loved it so much, it gave me the ability to fight in a range that was competitive. It really went to my strong suit of being able to move, footwork, range, all the things as a short person that you have to be good at. And so I really enjoyed it, and just kind of fell in love with it from there. It is insanely fun at Amtgard. And then the second, when I came into SCA, I couldn't fight rope, but when I did start fighting heavy, I started with sword and shield, left-handed, and I hated it. I couldn't see. It just was awful for me. And one of the biggest things is I need to be able to see in order to read where I need to be in range, how far my opponent is. Are they on my left? Are they on my right? Like, I'm just not good at this guessing game. And as soon as I tried to look, of course, I got hit in the head for it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. Let's just go to Madu and short sword, because that's what I'm so used to fighting with. And it's been a minute since I fought with it, but at least I'll be able to damn well see. And so I picked it up in heavy fighting. There's a little how to get used to, my hands have to be higher, you got to block your face and so forth, and a couple of other nuances. But I have greatly enjoyed it. I feel more comfortable fighting with it because I can see. I feel more comfortable with being able to control my range so much better, and having the option of fighting people at a further range and mid-range and close in. It's just works really, really well for me. So that's kind of how I got into it.
There you go. Thank you for that. So actually, I'm going to jump on this one too. So I started fighting Madus because I was tired of wearing my shield like a hat. So I didn't realize I was doing it until I started watching videos of me fighting with shields, and realized I just started going up and up and up. And it's frankly an overcompensation thing. Is that my arm would get tired, I would put the shield up, and then would get smacked in the ribs. So I got tired of carrying a heavy shield. Turned out my shield was also too heavy too, because I'm an idiot. But that's a whole different problem. So I went to the little thumbstick, and I sort of played with the idea in Persona of it's a spear. I'm, a Scythian horseman, idea of jumping off the horse, sword in one hand, a javelin in the other. And that's the idea. And it works. It's fun. And that's, for me, that's why I started, because it was fun. And it's not something done, like nobody else in Meridia's fights like that. I've seen a couple of axe fighters from Trimaris that fight similar style. And a couple of guys in Glob now are picking it up, which I love seeing. But it's definitely something that's not common around here, which, like Valentine mentioned, I was very successful for about a minute. And then they went, oh, that's cute, and beat me senseless. So I felt really good for a day. So I'll take that one. So Béla, what about you as the oldest Madu fighter here? First in fighting Madu is longest, not the oldest.
He's just rubbing that in, man. He's the oldest human on Earth.
So I love how he's saying that when he's out of arm's reach.
Right.
Like, remember, he's out of arm's reach.
Okay, hold on. I'll bring this. Béla ducked me for a good couple years. Wouldn't fight me. Him and Griffith both were scared of me.
Yeah,
Griffith
that's
still
exactly
is.
what happened.
So I'm just saying.
I did. I heard Béla. He was always like, I can't fight Cal. Oh, no.
That's right. Grace?
So for me, I found the SCA when I was 20, and I came to the SCA from a martial arts boxing background. I did Golden Gloves boxing, K1 kickboxing, Muay Thai fighting, all that kind of stuff before I even found the SCA. And the barony that I live in, when I first joined, they gave me a scutum, a Roman scutum for a year, and told me that I had to fight with that to prove that I was safe and learn. And that thing was a garage door. It was, it was 2.5 feet by 4.5 feet, 3/4 inch plywood. And I hated it. So as soon as the year was up, I started fighting two-stick Florentine. And I started giving out two-stick hugs because why not? But unfortunately, the very first time I hit a Pell with my left arm, I blew my left elbow out. So then I couldn't hold a shield. I couldn't do anything, but I still wanted to fight. So I went to practice with just a spear, essentially, in my left hand and blocked. And then I very quickly learned that having a hurt elbow that was getting hit all the time was painful. So I put a buckler on the shield and basically just made a madu. And then once my elbow healed and I started using the madu as an offensive weapon instead of just a skinny shield, I started realizing how natural that was for me, because the bottom spike is my jab or my front kick to keep range, and the top spike is my left hook to knock people out if they get too close. So I realized very quickly as I was healing that style fit the way I fought very well. So that kind of became my default form. I go to practice and I won't even pick it up. I'll fight just Florentine dagger one day or 4-foot axe or whatever, just so that I can fight with everything. Mm-hmm. But my main form is now sword madu and probably always will be.
Duke Sean brings up a good point here. It's this idea of sword and shield being the default in the SCA because of the magic shield concept. I think that's a really good point. And I think there are times where it makes other styles less effective because you can't break the shield. The shield is impenetrable. But definitely interesting. It is a good starting point for teaching because of that. Yes, Fearghus.
This is something I'm glad that this came up, and I'm sorry for jumping in. I don't think we've heard from Czypser yet, and I would love to hear from Czypser. But Duke Sean saying that is an absolutely important thing. I have this argument with people all the time. When I first started fighting with this style, when I would see people fighting madu, things like this, the first thing they would say is, well, that's just a piece of wood, or that's an antler. I could cut through that with a sword. I'm like, okay, right? I'll give you that if you're turbo, right? Awesome. But what's your shield made out of? Well, what would it have been made out of? Well, wood. Okay. All right. And so you're saying your wood can't be cut through? So it seems like to me, if we're going to look at a shield as being impenetrable and unbreakable, then it seems like a really crappy argument for somebody to have about, well, I could break that with a real sword. Well, then I could break your shield with a real sword. Let's have this party, right? I'm cool with it as long as it's consistent, right? That's just a way that people used to use to try to piss in somebody's Cheerios. And I'm sorry, this is a soapbox for me. Piss in somebody's Cheerios because they wanted to do something that was non-traditional, and the person that was getting killed all the freaking time couldn't figure out how to beat it, so they had to try to legislate it out. And I hate that. I hate it. Thank you, Rolf, for teaching me right. If you have an issue with how somebody is fighting, as long as they're being safe, it is your job to figure out how to best them. It is not their job to fight lesser so that you feel better, right? That is just a huge bone for me. Thank you, Sean, for bringing that up, and thank you for saying that. And Czypser, I am sorry for jumping in. Please forgive me.
All right, Czypser, what about you? So you're fighting Madu. When did you start? Why did you get the disease there?
So I probably picked it up maybe a couple years before COVID, like 2 years before COVID hit. So I think at this point, what's that, like 6 years ago? And I, if you don't know, was squire to Béla. I might already mention that. And so Béla, right, has always fought Madu. And so I kind of refused to do it for so long because I am obstinate in some of the dumbest ways. But growing up in the Outlands, right, I always wanted to be a Thane, and which, you only get to be a Thane if you fight multiple weapon styles. So I fought just about everything else. And I would change shields like every year and a half.
I would, adjust my sword length, like whatever was just fun, like whatever my D&D character in my head at that time wanted to play with. Like I was just like, you know what, screw it. Like, yeah, I'll use a tiny little shield. This will be great. And then I would get beat up, and then I would do something else. But no, one of my kind of lifelong, friends that I've had, or that I've known since I was 12 or so, is actually Griffith. And I went to Battlemore right around that time, and I was fighting Griffith. And Griffith is a short little lefty Madu fighter that it's like a style that shouldn't exist, and it happens. And he's been beating the crap out of me since I was 12, and he shouldn't be able to because his arms are so short, but he does anyhow. And so we're fighting, and of course he's beating the crap out of me. And he looks at me and he goes, I don't think in the 5 years that you've moved to Aitenvelt that you've gotten any better. Like I think you have a little better understanding. You're fast, you're athletic, you've always been that. He goes, but I don't think you've gotten any better. And so I went home and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to change some stuff up. And so I picked up a Madu just because I wanted to see, I wanted to see what would change. Like I wanted to work on my feet a little bit. I wanted to see what was open. And if you can't tell by how I sit in the chair, I've got a little bit of ADHD, and that focus and just being able to see everything with a Madu, there's so much visibility. I can see what's going on. I know, your leg is open. I know you're trying to throw a spin shot because your foot is behind your other foot. Like I can see all of that. And it kind of works with me. And so it was one of those, like, I was like, I'm going to do this for 6 months. I'll fight in the crown with it. We'll see what happens. And I did okay in crown, still got beat up. But it was one of those, I realized it just worked a little better with how my headspace was. And it's just, you're never blind with a Madu. You can always see what's happening. And I'm already fast, right? And if I know exactly where you are, or if I know exactly what you're going to throw, like the game just gets that much easier when I don't have a giant shield in my face. So
we have spite, fun, and ADHD. Or those are all great answers, frankly. I love it.
Isn't that all of the answers?
Yeah, that's done. There you go. And I think that covers a lot of sort of the whys of their plus the injuries talks. Is it's a weird style, but it has so many advantages for the different, like the visibility was for me a huge selling point of doing that versus something different. And I was always shit with Florentine. I don't understand swinging the left hand. I can stab left hand. I cannot swing it. I've tried. It doesn't work. All right. So I want to venture back to the magic shield concept. We had a question come in that I think is a good point on this. And Zipser, I'm going to come back to you to start this. So talking about magic shields, discussing the idea of the shield on a Madu, or in this case, whether it's a shield or a basket hilt or an impenetrable or impervious hand. How do we deal with the idea of passive shield rules in this? So those who don't know, in the SCA, you can have a passive shield. A passive shield on your back or on your side is not a shield. It's considered armor. So in our case, with a Madu, is it a passive shield? So Zipser, you were in this conversation. What's up?
Yeah, and actually, Mr. Merrick asked me this at practice like a week and a half ago. And I don't know that I have an answer. I think in reality, it's not I think a passive shield is something that you are not in control of. And I am absolutely in control of my shield. I'm not, at the mercy of, whatever the wind is doing, or I don't have a string holding my shield in my hand while I'm fighting 9-foot spear and the shield is strapped to my shoulder. Like I have full control over that shield. Whether or not, that is the ruling on it, I don't know. The rules are relatively vague, and I think we do that in the SCA just to, I don't know. I think we just like to be vague sometimes. We don't like to put rules on top of rules for no reason, which is okay, but it is kind of a weird, like, to me, it's an active shield, and especially like at Gulf Wars, and I've talked about Sven and Ragnar a little bit, and even Antigone, right? Beating the crap out of me at Gulf Wars, and even showing me how I can use my shield a little more actively. Rotating it over to the side a little bit, having it a little more flat against my wrist and my arm, allows me to use it more like a buckler, right? So I think it's an active shield, but I don't know. There's nothing to say it is or it isn't, I think.
Antigone, as someone who fights with a Madu with a shield on it, what you got?
Yeah, so interesting. I originally didn't fight with one on there. I thought it was dumb. Who needs that? And then when I came over to the SCA, my husband's Duke's been, everybody knows that, I think, at this point. But he said, hey, let's put a buckler on it just to protect your hand and your wrist, because my hand is a child's hand and my wrist is incredibly small, so very prone to injury. And so I was like, fine, whatever, I'll work with it. But my particular buckler is plastic, not metal, but inside of it, I actually have a trigger put on it in order to, because my hand is you can't really, okay, it keeps blurring it out. Anyway, my hand is really, really small. And so to keep hold of it and be able to control the shield a lot better, we bolted the shield to it. And then on top of that, I have a trigger in there so I can control it just like I do my punch shield. And it works exactly the same way. I can rotate it in, out, have it laying against my wrist, which is how, I can spin it either way to where it's flat facing or against this side. Since, sometimes you need to change those angles, but I have full control over my shield all the time because of that. The other thing that I've had to do with it is, and so I could fight out in the West with it, is there's a little piece I had to put on the inside to protect my fingers, because I don't want to fight with a full gauntlet. My hands are so small that gauntlets don't work very well for me. So I have that piece now on there as well. But yeah, I'm with His Majesty on this, and that I have full control over it. There's no reason not to have that there. And I fight with a very small buckler, and mostly it's for protection of my hand and my wrist. If I had a gauntlet on, it would block almost exactly the same thing. So
agreed. Béla, you have a fairly substantial shield on yours, I would say. What's your
it's about size? I think it's about 17 inches across. Yeah. So what I always tell people is this. So my shield is attached to the Madu stick. It's clamped on there so it won't move. And I do it that way because what I found is the ones that move are a lot less dangerous. I'm much more likely to hit you with the shield, with a top spike, if that shield can move. And what I always tell people when they're saying, well, that's a shield, you can't hit me with a shield. No, I'm not hitting you with your shield. I'm hitting you with the stick that's in my hand. There just happens to be a shield that's attached to that. And yes, I control that with my hand. So I don't think it's passive, but it's also, that's not what I'm hitting you with. I'm hitting you with the actual stick.
Interesting. So that's actually in two different points. Then is whether it's passive or not. I think we've all agreed it's never not a passive shield. But then, yet, are you attacking me with the shield? No, but also a little bit yes, but no. It's weird. It's like I can see where I can make an argument both directions on that. But that's interesting. All right. So like I see, I know Valentine and Fearghus and I don't fight with shields on ours. Fearghus, you have something to add to this topic?
Yeah, as somebody that doesn't fight with the shield on mine, but understanding exactly where they're coming from. If I'm deliberately blocking with something, that inherently makes it non-passive, right? Passive defense and passive shields they were designed because people they would put a shield on their back over with a strap and then say, I don't have to take that because you hit the shield. That is passive. Correct. You are doing nothing, and it is just passive defense. It's just like a long time ago in a land far, far away, they had what they called the dag defense, where people were making these 14th century surcoats that when they put their arms up, material ran from their wrist to their hip, right? So this was just a giant carpet. And in this position, right, they would people would hit the cloth, and the person being hit wouldn't feel it because it would get caught up in the cloth. That is a passive defense, right? Inherently, our style is not passive, right? We are deliberately blocking with that shield, or for me, with the Quillians, right? Inherently making it non-passive. So when people bring up once again, that is one of those things where I'm just like, you're just saying that to try to punch a hole in something you don't like because you're tired of getting beat by it.
There you go. Zipser, I just noticed your name, by the way. I just noticed that. This is why I can't let you kids have toys. All right.
I've been changing it. It was Zipser Kós for a little bit.
I saw
And
that.
it was Zipser the Holy. We're just having a good time.
I'm over trying to do things, and you're all right. All right. We got a couple of more questions here. So, His Lordship Thorin from the East Kingdom asks, "How do we deal with those who won't fight us due to the Madu style?" So I've had this happen a couple times to me personally, and I'll take this first. And I'm curious if you else have dealt with this. So the rule is that you don't have to fight anybody, right? According to the rule, you're never required to fight anyone in the SCA. Hard stop. But if you're in a tournament and you choose not to fight me because you don't like my style, then you withdraw from the tournament. I'm still fighting. So that's how I deal with it. I think sort of like Fearghus said, if you don't want to fight me because you don't like it, that just means you probably can't beat me. Now, you probably could beat me, but it's because I'm not that great of a fighter. But if like people like Béla or whatever, I think that's the idea. If there are some legitimate safety concerns that you want to bring to me, I'd like to hear them. I'd like to hear what I'm doing that's a safety concern. And I don't think it's the weapon. I think there are definitely more safety concerns, as we've addressed, than that are being caused by my weapon style. If it's me causing it, that's a different problem. So who else has dealt with people not wanting to fight them? Valentine, what you got?
So as I mentioned previously, the kingdom had a lot of hate for the style. So they went as far as basically they called out one event where it was no axe in the offhand, and I'm like, that feels really personal. But it gets to that point where I've had knights go, oh, that's a gimmick, I'm just going to bring out my glaive, and it's like, great, I get practice against great weapons for that. So, and I really think that's the attitude you have to take with it, is if you are, it's one thing if they're doing it the Madu, but if you're making it not fun for them. And I always try to open up the opportunity of, we have that dial for 10%, especially at practices and things like that, where you're not, you're fighting 10% better than the person that you're working with, and trying to keep that attitude of, we're having fun here. And if you're not being successful, let's work together and show you what I'm doing and why I'm being successful against you. That's the type of attitude I've had to take with it, because of, especially with the intensity that they had in Caid for it. So keep it fun, keep it light, and don't be afraid to, reach out like, hey, this is what I'm doing to you. And, it's different pickups and tournaments, but I don't think I've had anybody straight withdraw from a tournament from me yet.
So I'd like to take this one.
Come on.
If you don't mind, Cal. So for me, it depends entirely on the other person, right? If especially if it's a newer person and they just look uncomfortable and they're not sure of the weapon style or whatever, I ask them questions. Do you not feel comfortable? Have you never seen this weapon before? And then sometimes I can talk them into fighting me with it. If not, I ask them what they would like me to fight with and go get that. If they're one of those people that goes, oh, you're a Madu fighter. Oh, then I go, excuse me, my lord, is your lady here? Can you point her out to me? And then I go over and ask her what she'd like me to fight with against her lord. And then I beat their ass with that. And then afterwards, I asked them, would you like to learn how to fight against this style that you hate so much? But I'm kind of an asshole that way.
I was like, one day we all want to be as cool as Béla. That's really what I'm hearing here. That's the goal, right? Fearghus, what you got?
I've had a situation similar where I would get that sense, and I would see people. I don't want to say ducking the fight or anything else like that. It was just like they would deliberately not come and face me, right? And I would whenever that happens, whenever I feel like that happens, the first thing I do is I approach them off to the side. Like I get them whenever they're by themselves. I'm like, hey, is everything okay? Have I done something wrong? Right. And I try to draw out the issue. If it's me, I can be an utter dick, right? Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if they don't like me and they want to fight me, cool, right? Then we'll stand on the other side of the field and never look at each other, right? That's fine. But if they're like, I just don't like that weapon style, or I don't think I have anything for that weapon style, I'm very much like Sir Valentine and everyone else here. I'm like, let me show you how to beat me, right? Because I take on the whole idea of, If I teach you everything that I know, then it becomes something that now I have to get better, right? And if I get better, I can help you get better, and we all get to grow, right? That's what it's about for me. I don't care about winning. I despise the concept. I don't even talk in wins and losses anymore. It's those who grant victory and those who are granted victory, right? That's my nomenclature now. And so what I want them to do is leave better than they came. And if I can help them do that and showing them how to beat me, and I tell them all the secrets and things, I hate thrusts and slot shots. You all suck, right? Like every single time, right? But I'm like, here, try this, do that. And for me, it comes down to, can I make them more comfortable? And if I can, that's what I do, right? But just like Béla, right? If there's people out there, oh, you're gonna fight with that thing, you're just a big cheater. I'm like, okay, right? And I'm like, I'm not gonna stab you at all. This is just a blocking stick. How do you want to die? You tell me, and I will grant you your wish, right? I will send you home with whatever cookie you want, but it's not gonna be the cookie you like.
Oh, all right. Antigone,
Yeah, so I think my experience has been very different than everybody else's here. Part of it is my size, part of it is my gender. We can't dismiss that. And then the other part of it is how long and how well known of a fighter I am. So I don't have as many problems finding fights. I'm also really aggressive about calling people out to fight me, or going up to people and be like, hey, you're gonna fight me, yay. And I don't really have that problem with my weapon style of anyone denying me. I do have times when I go out, stand out in the middle of a field, have 20 knights standing around at Gulf War staring at me, and not a single one of them walk out to fight me, and then try to get them to fight me, and they all kind of look away. So I don't know that was my down spear Madu style per se, but really I haven't faced a lot of that. I'm sure as I get better at the style, as I kind of progress in my fighting, I'll probably face a lot of the same things. I don't take it personally. Of course, always happy to educate what little I know to people, but I just move on. I do this for fun. I do this for myself. I'm not here to placate other people. So you don't want to fight me? That's cool. There's got to be somebody else that will, or I'll stand out here until somebody does. If we're in a tournament, well, okay, then you're withdrawing. Great. Good for you. I just don't have time for it. I get better things to do with my life.
There you go.
Antigone,
Yeah.
I will fight you every day.
Exactly.
Let's fight all day.
Well, thank you. I look forward to that.
I'm pretty sure I stood in line waiting to fight you at Gulf Wars. I was ready for that, man.
You did. That was such a great day. I was kind of sad because there was a tournament going on I was supposed to watch as a Rose, but the fights we got were pretty, and the training was pretty amazing. So yeah. I think you're right.
I wasn't mad about it. All right. So, and I'm going to kick this into Béla first as the Outlands Knight here, because I heard about this happening at Gulf Wars, so I didn't get to see it with my own two eyes. But for Merrick, why are there so few double Madu fighters? And if you were to fight double Madu, what would that look like? So I heard about there was a knight from the Outlands that fought double Madu, or
there's been several people that have fought double Madu, and I'm not going to fall for that trap, Merrick. You have to show people yourself. But I have fought double Madu. I fought double Madu against double Madu. It's stupid. It's ridiculous, but it's also a lot of fun. I keep joking that I'm going to make a shake weight Madu and put a shake weight where my handle is, just to watch the marshals lose their mind. But yeah, nice try.
Yeah. I think it's one of the first things you told me, Béla, was when we were discussing fighting and the idea of the skiing method of fighting. Yeah. Leave that at that. Use a rain stick. Good job, Antigone. All right. Anybody else have any comments about double Madu? Want to add to this?
That would just be a bunch of angry cats. Like, what the hell was that? Like, meow, meow. That's the whole fight, right? The whole thing. You got to play that sound in the background. You have to. The cat's fighting, right? Like, I'll tell you 100%. I mean, Let me in. I've got another broken spear. I'm making it. It's on.
So no, so I think it's always been a joke, but I legit heard about a guy, one of the Knights of the Mountains, doing this at Gulf Wars and was fairly successful with it. I was surprised. Yeah. So
Sir
you may actually see
Zachariah does that.
Do you all actually see him fighting like that? Like, what did it actually look like? How was he good at that?
Oh, he's just ridiculous. It's
okay.
So it's Sir Zachariah of the Outlands, the Sword of the Lord, if you will. Well, honestly, one of my favorite people ever. And he picked it up. We do a King's Champion tournament here. It's kind of like a Swiss 5 thing. And he picked it up for the 2 weapons part of the tournament. And he went out there as a joke. And honestly, like where it started. So that's where it started. He did that. We took a picture and then it ended up on like the Shiv page. And there were some people losing their freaking minds. They're like, this is stupid. What the heck is going on? And then I think Bart was like, you guys aren't good enough to have double Madu. And it was just ridiculous. But I mean, he's decent with it because he dorks around with it. Like, it's not a good style. Like, it's a novelty, if you will. And it's not recommended unless you want to have a lot of fun. I fought Talon double Madu and he punched me in the face like 10 times. Like, I couldn't call dead fast enough. I was like, this will be all right. Like, I actually fight Madu. No, Talon's Xerxes. Sorry, Duke Xerxes from Countier. He just jumped in my face and started punching me. It was terrible.
Noted. All right. So if you're going to fight double Madu, don't get punched in the face by Duke Xerxes. I like that. All right. So, I've got a question for the panel that I'm really interested to hear some answers to. What's the thing you hate most about fighting Madu? What is like the one disadvantage that you found in fighting your style that's like your Achilles heel?
Lefties.
Done. All right. So there's Valentine's. Fearghus, what you got? You're ranting over there.
2-stick lefties. Holy Christ! What is that? Archers. We should have archers for those people.
All right, there you go. Antigone, what you got?
So I fight 2-sword fighters quite frequently. Obviously.
I was like, when your husband's Duke's Finn, like that's kind of a thing.
So I don't have. I think probably the worst thing was like this weird glaive I faced. I was like, I just didn't know what to do with it because I hadn't seen it before. So maybe something strange I hadn't ever seen or fought before. But if somebody's fighting left-handed, I switch it up and I'll fight Madu left-handed. I'm able to do that. But I think that's the only time I've been like, I don't know what's going on here and I don't like it.
I'm uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yes.
I will also say a really good glaive fighter is I don't know if any of you have gotten a chance to fight Duke Tom. That was a terrifying experience. So he's in our chat here,
yeah.
But it's
we're just good. They're just goodness deficient. I like that. Béla, what about you? What is what's your Achilles heel with Madu?
Well, part of it is the fact that I've spent 10 years teaching classes on how to beat me and people actually pay attention. So slot shots and thrusts are hard to block when you have 2 sticks in your hand, whether it's 2 swords or sword and Madu. They're just, it's hard to get your body out of the way or get your stick in the way of theirs to get it offline.
Yeah.
Béla, can you talk about the angles, levels, and planes real quick? Because I think that's probably, I know I quote it incorrectly more often than I do correctly, but it is a very valuable tool, I think, in this conversation and also against fighting sword and shield or other styles.
Hold on, Zepser. I thought that was our goal for tonight was to quote Béla incorrectly.
Oh, I'm so good at it, dude. Like,
yourself first and then let him tell us how you were completely wrong.
Oh,
yeah, so you tell us about it, and then we'll let Béla correct you.
Oh God, this is terrible. Well, I always say it backwards. So growing up, Béla always talked about angles, levels, and planes, right? And the gist of it that I got as a kid, and that I've brought to my adulthood, is that if you throw parallel to an object, they have to move to block it. And so if my Madu is straight up and down, and you throw a slot shot or you throw a thrust, I have to adjust. I have to move, which means I can't stab you with it. I can't, do other stuff with it. I have to block. Same with a sword and shield. If you're fighting somebody with a strapped heater, there's a flat plane on top. If you throw parallel to that, they have to move. They have to make their object perpendicular. And so angles, levels, and planes is like the concept of like, oh god, this is terrible. Is it angles? Angles is where you, Béla, I need you to take over. This is
You're killing me.
explain it with my hands, with weapons.
Killing me. So angles, levels, and planes is something for offense, not really defense. In typical Czypser fashion, he's taking two different concepts that I've taught him and combining them into one concept and not describing him either well.
It sounded so good, though. He was doing so good for a minute there.
So offensively, when you throw combinations, you want to change angles, levels, and planes. Angles, you change with your footwork. If I stand in front of you and throw a flat snap, it's pretty easy to block. But if I step out 6 inches to my right and throw that same flat snap, it's a lot harder to block. I've changed the angle with my feet. Levels are what level of the body you're attacking. Are you attacking the head, the torso, the leg, the thigh? Like, what are you attacking? Plane is the plane that your weapon travels in to get there. Is it in a horizontal plane? Is it in a vertical plane? So during a combination, if you're throwing a 3-shot combination, ideally you would like to change all 3 of those things from shot to shot. The more of those things you change, the harder it is to block. The other concept that he's confusing that with is parallel and perpendicular. When you're on defense, you want to block what is being thrown to you as perpendicular as possible, especially if you're just using your sword. So if they throw a flat snap, I'm going to have a sword straight up and down, and I'm going to block it that way. Because they can't, there's no way for it to skip off. There's no way for it to skip through. They have to actually power through my hand in order to hit me. Offensively, I want to be as parallel to what I'm trying to get past as possible. If you're holding your sword at that angle, I'm going to match that angle with my sword and go right past it. So good job of mixing up 2 different things, Nick.
It's a useful tool, and I use it all the time. I just couldn't ever explain it the same way Béla did. So I just smash things together, and then I'm like, why doesn't it work? He's like, well, you're an idiot. That's why.
Have you ever thought about taking notes and writing down what he says? And then
no. I have a book. I've always had a book. He told me he's like, bring your book with you, write things down. And I do write things down sometimes, but it's never what he says. I memorize that, of course. Yep. Yeah. I do want to say one more thing, though. We did talk about Duke Tom, if that's cool. So Duke Tom fights Glaive, and not only does he fight Glaive, he fights Glaive really well, like well enough to be a Duke, obviously, and that's what he fights. But I think in general, a Glaive is kind of the scissors to the paper with Madu. I used to fight with a basket, and before switching to the buckler, I could not block a thrust straight to the center of my body. Like, I have to scoop it. And so like I was going and doing a lot of fencing with a dagger just to figure out how to block that. And then I put a buckler on there, which gives me a little more thrust protection. But just in general, like, a glaive can stand 6 feet away from you and poke at you, and none of your tools are designed to block that as a sword and Madu. So, that's something to take into account is, if you don't want to fight a Madu with your sword and shield, like, grab a glaive, make me chase you, and stab me in the stomach as I do it, and it's an answer. I don't know that it's the answer. And I don't know that it takes someone as good as Duke Tom to make that work. He makes it work, and he makes it look really awesome because he's really good at it. But I just don't know that it takes someone as awesome as him to really make that happen.
Fearghus, go ahead.
Talking about the glaive thing, and I am not saying I am great at fighting against glaive. I am not. I have the same problem. I am a wide object, and a thrust is a small object, and those two should never meet, right? The way that I deal with that quite often, though, is when I see the glaive fighter come down, point on, which is where they should be, in my opinion, fighting us, is I'll elongate my stance. I fight a lot of sword leg forward, right? So I will elongate and actually reach out with my sword to take up some of that space so that when the thrust comes, I feel like I have more time to do something with it because I'm in contact with it faster. If my hands are back farther in that kind of A-frame thing that we kind of get into quite often, that's whenever I take it in the chest a lot. So I try to bait that a little bit and then swipe it down and then get in, not on top of them. I just want to get past their hands, right? That way I still have all my vision, but I'm past their hands. It's much more difficult. I either get killed at that point, either by a butt spike or missing my block on the hack, right? But I try to get to where I don't have to deal with that upper thrust as much. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that's what I do if I can get there.
So I think it's getting past it, and apparently we're giving Duke Tom a swollen head, and this is this gentleman's problem later. So I like this. So Madu and Glaive do have a ton of interesting intersections and similar needs that are met in very different ways. So I think that's a great point, and I hate fighting Glaive fighters. So yeah, I would love to see more of that. And I have to give Duke Tom some credit when I did get to fight him. He fought me and killed me and fought me and killed me. And then he fought me and I got in and got close and I kind of stopped and was like, you're toying with me, aren't you? He goes, he did the Fezzik thing of, I want you to feel like you're doing good. And then he killed me. So I felt like I was doing good for like a second. And then I realized, oh, you're just being nice. Thanks. And I walked away crying. But I learned something that day. And so I'll take that. All right, so what else we got? We got 15-ish minutes left. Don't apologize, Your Grace. It was great. I loved it. We have 15 minutes left. What else do we want to cover? What have we missed? Valentine, what you got?
Well, I was going to ask a question to the group of what I started out in Kaid and had like my funny enough, my knight is a 2-sticker who's a lefty, 2-sword fighter. But I had very few resources and very few kind of places to get started other than, look at this guy named Czypser out there and, see if you can find a video for him. But I didn't have a whole lot of resources. So I really had to develop mine in a bubble. So what would be those places for new Madu fighters that you guys would point to?
There you go. All right. Who wants up first? Yeah, come on, Antigone. You got it.
So I think first, there's two different parts to this question. One, are you new at fighting, or are you just new at the style? I think if you're brand new at fighting, then really the best thing for you is to learn the basics of fighting, of stance and range more than anything. You're going to want to learn range control kind of first. With a Madu, in my opinion, especially as a short fighter, you'll just stand there and get killed. So as far as resources out there are a ton of videos, YouTube videos, classes that have been filmed about those things. And that's kind of where I would start. And then for Madu specific, there isn't a whole lot out there for a specific Madu how to get started. There's a lot of videos out there that kind of show Madu fighters and things like that. But as far as a direct, here's a playlist of all the classes for learning how to Madu fight, that's not really out there. And it's probably because it's just not as common of a thing like Sword and Shield. But I think because of this show, I'm hoping that some of us, Valentine's popping up some stuff, I'm hoping some of us can kind of maybe put together some playlists or, record some classes for that very purpose. So.
And speaking of Valentine, and I can't, the link's going to be buggy on here, so we'll share the TikTok link out afterwards. But the Valentine, I want you to talk about this for a second. You did a class, I think at an event recently. I saw it after I wasn't there, but it was like a series of TikToks that I watched, and it just a brilliant description of some of what you do. Can you talk about that for a second?
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I did, it was kind of my starter class, so I was a little rambly with it, and I need to upload it to YouTube. I just happened to try to get some new people and adopt the young tech. But so I tried to work through like starting from like the bottom up and covering those bases of, why I stand the way I stand and why, and what my thought process is through the fight and how I control the fight. And with the Madu, for me, it was a lot of that bottom tip is how I control range, how I start that fight. And then after that, it's what I'm thinking about on, I have 2 weapons. I can split your defenses. So if I'm fighting a sword and shield, it's going to be those corners. You know, if I'm shooting here, I'm throwing here. And so I talk a lot about how to control. And then the big thing is I think one of the major things for our, from what makes me successful is the footwork of being able to go through that and understand that range and waiting for the other person to commit. So anyway, I cover a lot of that in there. And if you guys are interested, by all means, that's, I'm trying to teach another one here as soon as I'm not going to something else. So
one of the things I learned out of that class was when you do your, like the side step and then let them run into your top spike. That to me was a thing I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Because my top spiking, I can't do it. I've never understood how it works. I don't use it. And I saw you do that. I was like, that's brilliant. I got to figure out how to work that in now. So between that and what Béla taught me about actually stepping out and not fighting laterally, I might be able to work the two together.
Yeah. And there's so much stuff, especially when you're with the sword. If they see that step here with that sword behind their head, you know, everybody reads rap on that. So their body instinctively tracks that way. And that's what really kind of creates that opening of, like, they have these programmed things in their head of, they see me do this, they know that's, you know, that rap is coming. So we can work with those a lot. So tricky 2 stickers.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you for that. Fearghus, you had some stuff on YouTube you want to talk about?
Mine is zero specific training, but I post a lot of video content, just practices that I go to, fighting people, things like that. And my words are this: one, watch all the videos you can, and I can guarantee you, right? I'm only speaking for myself, but looking at this group, I can guarantee you, if you see video on anybody here and you have a question, ask them, right? Hey, are you willing to help me out with this? Can you do that? I love to fight, but I love to teach more, right? Like, teaching is my jam. Fighting is just a bonus. So please go check out the videos that I post. And if you have any questions, like, how did you do this? Why do you do that? Things like that. I'm like, I will tell you all of it. I will dump that onto the floor and let you have every single bit of it, because it's just about joy. So that's my challenge, and I think all the people here will accept that. Like, if somebody asks you a question about it, you know, teach them how to get, you know, hit in the face with a stick, right? Seriously, because it happens to all of us all the time, right? We're blocking with 1.25 inches. Like, seriously, 1.25 inches. That's it. So ask questions. That's the best thing. And I've watched some of your videos, Valentine, and I'm going to watch even more of them, because, oh my God, you got some good stuff in there. Thank you.
There you go.
For me, I think the best teaching really is done in person. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff out there online. There's the YouTube stuff, and, you know, SCA Coaches Corner. There's lots of stuff that's getting put out there that are great resources for people to learn, but nothing really beats hat time, face-to-face learning. So the biggest, easiest way to learn is get out of your home group, travel inside your kingdom, travel to the big events in your region. If you're on the West Coast, go to Great Western War, go to War of the Phoenix, go to Ontario West War. You know, if you're in the middle, go to Lilies, go to Gulf Wars. If you're in the East Coast, you know, Pennsic, there's border skirmish, there's all kinds of things everywhere. But every time you get outside of your group, you meet new people. And when you see somebody with a weird weapon style or something that you like, go ask questions. Like, I've yet to meet somebody in the SCA that if I wanted to learn something, they weren't willing to teach me.
You know, we couldn't travel without the wheel, which Béla also invented, along with fire.
That's America, everybody.
I love it. Oh, man. So, speaking of Pennsic, who else going to Pennsic? Right. Show of hands. Who's going to Pennsic? Just me and Fearghus? Oh, I don't want to see Fearghus. That's fun.
I'll find out after next weekend if we're going or not.
Cool. I say so. Me, Fearghus, and Czypser release. So we have like a little madu off.
I'll be a Great Western War.
We'll see if we can con Béla into going.
There you go.
Yeah, I think almost all of us will be at Great Western War except for Fearghus.
There's Great Western War. Well, the other is Battlemore, right? So
Yeah.
Battlemore is the kingdom of the Outlands, and if you can make it out there, my squire won the Sword and Shield of Battlemore tournament last time, and he fights Madu, and he fights very differently than probably any of us, and we all fight very differently than each other. So, if you can make it out to Battlemore, and you want to learn stuff, there's plenty of people out there. Yeah, it's just as wacky as Antigone says, right? Onstiora's got their own wacky Madus, and Outlands has different ones. Jax throws spin shots, and like Hawk's very stabby. Béla will top spike you for days. So it's kind of a wild style. But.
If anybody is out in Atlantia, we have a war out here called War of the Wings. It's really good, a lot of fun. And if any of y'all are out that way, let me know. I'll find a pavilion for you and food and beer.
Yep. There you go. All right. I think we're hitting the hour half. I'm gonna go ahead and do a couple of show plugs, and then we'll do some final thoughts. We'll wrap this up in typical KK Productions fashion here. So coming up next on Kalbardrs Korner, this Sunday over on Kalbardrs Korner, I'll be joined. I'll be teching. I'll be backstage, but Baroness Ramut, Pelican Pending, will be joined by Moira of Kent from the West Kingdom. That's Mom. She's the best mom. Talking about what she does and how she functions and how she keeps people in the SCA and how she has them be excited about being here. Mo's been around for quite some time, and it just is a delight. So looking forward to hearing her thoughts on that. Next Sunday, I'll be back with Coffee with Cal, and I'll be joined by Baroness Amani, a new member of the Mid-Realms DEI team, talking about service dogs and the Canon Alert Warning System at Penzic. And of course, joined by Murphy as well, her service dog. Murphy is a delight. If you've never been around the Silvertree Souk at Gulf Wars and met Murphy, do that. It is worth the price of admission just to meet Murphy. And of course, Coach's Corner will be here every Wednesday. I think every other Wednesday now they're doing. So they'll have a show coming up in a week and a half. So check them out as well. Let's do some final thoughts, I guess. We'll start at the top of the order again. Zipser, what's your summing up Madu in 3 words or less, or a paragraph or less? What you got?
I don't know. I think everybody should fight multiple weapon styles, and I think you should try everything until you find something that your inner D&D character loves. And that, for me, I still love fighting everything. I'll fight dagger, I'll fight round fire, but Madu is something that really worked with my brain. And so I think, as Merrick put it, find a style and practice and get good and train. Because if you don't train, you don't get better. Just swinging a stick of practice doesn't make you good.
There you go. Your Grace?
Well, I think I'm going to go the opposite way. The title of this show is Madus, Why All the Hate. And as someone who's dealt with that for 20 plus years, I think what it really boils down to is a combination of two things. Number one, as Zipser said earlier, like every one of us that's on this panel fights this style vastly differently. So there are so many different ways that we fight this style. And the flip side of that coin is the vast majority of the people that hate this style are people that only fight sword and shield, and they're fighting other sword and shield guys 95% of the time. And so when they run into someone like us, it's very foreign to them. They don't know what to do. And even worse, they're giving themselves a lot of really bad habits fundamentally and mechanically when they fight sword and shield, because there isn't a weapon in that left hand that makes them pay for taking a big step with their right foot instead of closing the ground with their front foot or whatever. So their ego can't handle the fact that they're getting their ass kicked by this funky weapon style. And they think it's got to be the weapon style, not the fact that I'm giving myself bad habits and I need to get better.
There you go. Antigone?
Yeah, so I came on this show because I really wanted to kind of just put forth this idea that if people want to fight with a different weapon style, especially if they're new, let them. Please stop forcing them to fight with something that they're not going to have fun with or that doesn't fit their body. And stop making fun of them for wanting to try something different. It's not helpful. It's not funny, and nobody likes it. So let people have fun and enjoy what they enjoy, and just stop being asses about it, please.
I like the please at the end. There you go. Fearghus?
Perfect person for me to follow. 100% everything that she said. So I'm only going to go over part of it. One, fight whatever the hell you want to fight. If you can show me that it existed in history, fight with it. I don't give a rat's ass. From what I understand, someplace in history, somebody killed somebody with a jawbone. I don't care, right? What I care about is joy, right? Utter and complete joy. If you're not having fun in what you're doing, don't do it. This is a violent sport. And you can get hurt, and you can actually hurt people, not intentionally, I hope, but you can. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it, right? And for those people that our idea and what we love to do makes them mad, then go be mad some other effing place. And I'll say it, some other fucking place. That way there's two fuckings in one show, right?
We just crossed the PG-13 barrier. Damn it, we were doing so good.
So, and it wasn't me.
I know.
Stop pissing on other people's Cheerios. Seriously, let them enjoy whatever they're enjoying. And if you don't want to fight it and you can't figure it out, then go find something else, right? Don't be that person, right? Thank you very much, Antigone, for everything that you have said, 100%. And I want to thank you very much for having me on this panel. I am gobsmacked with the amount of knowledge and wonder that is here. Thank you very much, Cal, for inviting me to be here. This is amazing.
Of course. Valentine, follow that. Enjoy.
I was going to say that's going to be tough. The big thing is put yourself, for me, obviously make sure you're having fun. I want to see all those different crazy weapon styles. I want to see a variety of things. One of the hardest things I do is when I have to fight another Madu fighter, because I don't get to fight him very often. I don't know what to do against you. I will say, when I first started in picking up the Madu and started dominating the tournament scene, they didn't know what to do, and they have gotten better, and it has forced me to get better. And we're now back on that, like I've faced those people that, refuse to put a thrusting tip on their sword and fight with a side mount round just because they like to fight in hard mode. And he beat me in the finals of Crown. That's my grand night. I'm calling out Duke Adam. But we're all going to have that thing that makes the sport fun for us, and we can be successful with those. So just go do it.
There you go.
And hey, Cal.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, for anybody that wants to come to Baltimore, Master Hawkle, this is the shield that Master Hawkle made as the prize for the Sword and Shield of Baltimore tournament. So if you can come to Baltimore, you can try and beat me to win this.
Wow.
That's going to look wonderful on my wall.
Yeah, that's good. That's look nice. I like that. All right. Final thoughts for me. I'm actually gonna bring up a note from the comments here. Don't be the FU in fun. I like that. I'm just gonna go with that. Don't be a dick, man. This is a fun game. Play your persona, do what you can do. So I want to thank the five of you and Margery as well, who couldn't be with us tonight, for being willing to come on camera. I know certain older folks over there in the corner don't like to be on camera. We appreciate the time tonight. And all of you out there watching, we appreciate you for tuning in. Keep tuning in to Coach's Corner. Keep tuning in to Kalbardrs Korner. Don't forget to support the channels. Look us up on Patreon, patreon.com/KK Productions. Support Coach's Corner, Kalbardrs Korner, Ask Nights Live, and all the other channels we support here. But until next time, folks, this has been, and I'm going to do this, hold on, Czypser, Béla, Antigone, Fearghus, Valentine, and Cal in Kalbardrs Korner. Have a good night, everybody.